This is a video I am making to answer someone who is making comments on Baird Spalding and saying to me that he can find places that he thinks are reliable on Google, which says that Spalding never went to India. And I suppose a person could find that. I've found it myself, but I don't believe it because I've found other places where Divorce talks about his trips with Spalding, and they weren't fictional trips. And he talked to Spalding at length about his journeys into India. As a matter of fact, Spalding was educated at Calcutta in India, so how you can say he never went to India and believe that, well, I guess people believe what they want to believe. But your other question was, how do I see in Spalding's writings that he's talking about a new world order? Well, I want to show you, or read to you, a part of the book where I think he's saying something very similar to that. He had been talking about our need to be united and to end the war so that we can have peace, because without peace we can't have a new world order. Anyway, I'll start here where he says, following this spreading tendency to outlaw war, people will have their eyes open to the causes of war, which are in the sole promotion of group or national advantages. The practice of non-cooperation will also be outlawed as a contributing cause of war. This brings the whole thing right down to the individual, and each one must outlaw his own selfishness and self-seeking at the expense of others. He, as an individual, will find that the best way to promote his own interest is to promote the common interest, and the only way to preserve his own good is to preserve the good of the whole. This silent tendency is now being awakened on a broad scale, but each individual must find its beginning in himself, and one who will earnestly search his own soul will find the embryo of this movement increasing in his own nature every day. Spreading from individual to individual, it will grow into a mighty world movement, and will be the ultimate motive in all human activities. Just as the individual who does not obey this eternal trend of his inner nature is destroyed, so will such groups, institutions, religious organizations, races, and nations be disintegrated, leaving the world for those who love the law of God and live that law in relationship to every other man and nation. In all modern movements, it is clearly revealed that the changes must be first in the individual, for unless his own nature is properly correlated with the movement back of outer conduct, he becomes a disintegrating factor in any movement that might otherwise accomplish untold good. One can scarcely do anything in the way of accomplishing universal peace until he has found peace within his own nature, and he cannot find peace in his own nature until he has been long enough truly in touch with the unseen forces which move toward the common good. There is no question but that the individual first must be at peace. Not only that, but he must realize what it means to the individual as well as to the nation. If he is centralized in that ideal of peace, he projects that influence, and he becomes one of the great moving factors of the spiritual development of the age. The peace movement is one of the most definite factors towards spiritual enlightenment as well. Politics will be broken down completely with this new system that is coming. But so long as the present political setup endures, no really effective program can be launched and carried to a successful conclusion. Everyone who keeps in step with the trend of the times is receiving all the help he is capable of receiving from these higher forces. Some of them receive this help consciously, some unconsciously, but nevertheless the help is there. Some have gone so far that they know and acknowledge this help. Political parties in the working out of the underneath movement of constructive forces will probably merge into one great party for greater simplicity of government. These changes must come through our party system, moving into single-chamber legislation and not divided. A house divided against itself shall fall. That will eradicate a great many of our political evils. This will all originate within the states due to changes brought about there. It is coming as a national movement in the United States. Peace is here. When we relate ourselves definitely to that principle, it makes us a working unit. Teach the people to expect and prepare for changes. Become sensitive to the changes now moving underneath the political and economical structure. The change that will liberate is not in any of these outer forms, but in the hearts of men. As a matter of fact, in Book 4 of the series of books called The Masters of the Far East, the 4th chapter is called Basis of Coming Social Reorganization. And if that doesn't say a new world order, I don't know what would. But it's not the kind of new world order one would imagine that has all these conspiracy theorist ideas in mind, that one group is going to take over all the others. It's not that kind of thing at all. That would be the furthest thing from what this is. I will read just a little bit more from this chapter entitled Basis of Coming Social Reorganization. Selfishness and self-interest separates us, isolate us from the rest of humanity, and this sense of separateness makes people immune to their needs, thus throwing the social structure out of balance. It is in this way that greater and greater needs develop in one group, while greater and greater abundance develops in another, and the whole social structure is thrown out of balance. This is where war and strife develop. Can you imagine two groups going to war, each striving to meet the needs of the other? Nature abhors a vacuum, and just as violent storms occur because of extreme differences in atmospheric pressure, so do wars develop primarily from extremes in the human status. I think it is an awakening of a potential for great power within the individual. But it is not a power that can be used to manipulate or control others that is selfish. Let me read what he says about that. The individual tempted to use this spiritual knowledge to influence, control, or gain advantage over others should remember that every edict which goes forth from his own mind or mouth passes through his own being and becomes a fiat of power within his own nature, working upon himself exactly as he had intended it for another. So, if you're worried about, say, the Illuminati doing something just real disastrous to a lot of mankind, trying to depopulate the earth and rule in the way that a lot of people suppose they want to do, if they violated this law that I just read, that when you seek to control and use your will against others, whatever you wish for them will be what happens to you. It's the law of karma. It just makes full circle and comes right back on the one who originated an idea like that. And I guess this is how they disintegrate themselves. So there's nothing really to worry about as long as you're not into that manipulative type of wielding of power. Because this force is a force you work with, and it's not a force you have over others. It's power with, not power over. And I welcome it. And I hope to hear from others who welcome that same kind of principle being revitalized and made to run this world in the way that I know it can be run, where we have peace in the world